Hi everybody, this is the Football Hut, the amazing, spectacular, terrific, the great one, the People's Champion, your host, the Hut, and welcome back to the Football Hut, and hope you like this video. Hit that subscribe button. You like people making... There's nobody that makes fun of WFAN. So if you're a fan of WFAN, or even if you're not a fan of WFAN, hit that subscribe button. You'll laugh your ass off, even just laughing at me, by the way. But the one thing I know about the fan, is that nobody really goofs on them anymore since the late Imus in the morning left the radio station and unfortunately passed away. So this is someone who was a former listener of the I-Man giving you what he used to do to these clowns all the time. They don't get this anymore. Everybody's professional, except you get this sort of weirdness, especially from the morning show. Well, this video is about the Jets, and this video is about Kirk Cousins. Now, Justin Jefferson, who's the best wide receiver in football, is injured for the Vikings. He's got a hamstring injury. He's going to be out for about a month. So he's missed about 4 weeks. And there's talk, and because the Vikings have gotten off to a very slow start, they're 1-4, that there's talk that Kirk Cousins, their quarterback, who's on the last year of his contract, is going to get traded. Now, I've been talking about him a little bit the last few days, and we'll talk a lot about him as we get close to the trade deadline on October 31st, Halloween. And there's a lot of talk that the Jets might trade for him. Well, I have two different takes from two different members and two different employees of WFAN. We'll start first with the afternoon team of Evan and Tiki, which, just going through some of the comments and reading some of these articles on Odyssey, they might be the sanest of all the hosts on their radio station as part of their prime time group of hosts. And then we'll have the second part of this video, which is the insane part, which is the morning show. I feel bad for Norman Esiason, also known as Boomer Esiason, and he has to deal with that crazy guy. I wonder how many times Boomer's had to walk out of the room when Greg Gianni's had one of his crazy, insane meltdowns. But here we go. From Odyssey.com, Evan says Jets need to blow up Vikings phone about Kirk Cousins trade after Justin Jefferson injury. When Aaron Rodgers went down with an Achilles injury in Week 1, Evan wanted the Jets to go after a veteran quarterback to salvage a season that began with Super Bowl aspirations. Now, none of these hosts, none of them, said that the Jets should have brought in another veteran quarterback so that no one would have to deal with Zach Wilson. But Zach Wilson is not reliable. He's been a disaster for years. And now that's come to pass as well. But the thing about Zach is that no one prior to the season were intimating that the Jets should get a backup that was better than Wilson, just in case. You never know, especially with a 39-year-old quarterback. Now, thanks to a disastrous start for the Vikings and star wide receiver Justin Jefferson being placed on IR, Evan believes that can finally happen. Quote, "This morning, something happened that could lead to that. It's a dream for me, and the dream is alive," Evan said, who's a Jets fan. I would mention about Evan, he's a Mets fan too. And he's a little more reasonable than some of these clowns that pretend to be Mets fans. The dream, to swing a trade for Kirk Cousins and to bring a more capable quarterback into the fold to lead gangrene to the playoffs. Quote, "While some Jet fans have fallen in love with Zach Wilson after 5 good drives, I'm still a realistic Jets fan," Evan said. "He's a guy who is not very good. Kirk Cousins is. It's the ultimate Band-Aid move. I'm abusing my cell phone by calling the Vikings day in and day out to acquire him." That's a little weird. That's a bit of a weird comment. But this is one of the more sane people, one of the sane hosts on the Fan. I would mention he partnered with that crazy old guy, Joe Benigno, for 10 years. Now he's paired up with this boring guy there in the afternoon, Tiki Barber. And now, from the morning program, Boomer and Gio. And Gio, as we like to call him, Greg, which was funny she mentioned his name's Greg, because his name's Greg. Greg, he is insane. I mean, completely, totally deranged. Last week, with the New York Mets, the Mets are a baseball team, if you didn't know, and they hired a new guy to run the club, and his name is David Stearns. And he's been on the job for 4 days. And last week, Gio insulted him, called him Mr. Dweeb, and he said that the Mets that he's calling for the Mets to fire him already. And he's not made one move. He's done nothing to deserve any kind of like criticism at this point. Now, Gio is also somebody that's a little cuckoo. He tells people that he's had mental health issues. But back in the day, they were mental health problems. Mental problems. That's what they used to call it. Then they kind of softened it up with the mental health issues. But Gio is all over the place. So you get this sort of craziness, and it's weird because he's known for these like impressions. He'll do an impression of Steve Summers. Oh, Steve Summers, you know. And he'll do his bro, you know, his Joe Beningo bro. And he does impressions of every single member, every single employee at WFAN. But no one, and I mean no one, will ever do an impression of him because he's hard to pin down. He's got some issues. I'm not saying that. He has said that. So here's from Odyssey.com. So just take this into account when he's talking about Zach Wilson. He likes to pretend that he knows what other people are thinking. I think because he thinks he does these impressions, that he thinks he could pretend to know what these people are thinking, or what a multiple group of people are thinking, like the Jets front office, like Joe Douglas, the general manager of the Jets. Gio, from Odyssey.com. Gio would take disastrous Zach Wilson for Jets to call about Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins has been all the buzz around the Jets since Justin Jefferson was placed on the IR, as many fans wonder if Gang Green could swing a trade for the veteran quarterback and resume the team's playoff push. Now, you saw how positive Evan Roberts was, talking about, oh, the Jets, they can get him, blah, 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 blah. But now with Gio, everything is negative, everything is shit, okay? Gio doesn't see it happening unless Zach Wilson lays an egg against the Eagles on Sunday, though he would be on the phone with the Vikings already if he were in Joe Douglas's shoes, who's the general manager, like I said. Here's an example of Gio thinking that he knows what everybody else in the room is thinking. Even if they're not in the room, he probably thinks he knows what I'm thinking. Quote, the Jets have been married to this guy and shackled to him because they want to be since he got here. Gio said of Wilson, it's going to take a miserable performance from him against the Eagles for them to consider moving on and potentially trading for Kirk Cousins. I just hope if he has another mediocre bad performance that Joe Douglas says at that point, I'm going to call up the Vikings and see what's going on. Now, I would mention, again, he thinks he knows what's going on in the Jet front office, and he thinks he knows what's going on in the head of Joe Douglas. He doesn't know what's going on in his own head. You know, and he thinks that he knows, like I said, he thinks he knows what's going on in the heads. That's the one thing with Gio. His favorite words are should've, could've, would've, and he always places himself in the minds of all these different front office people and all these different players and all these different athletes. It's very bizarre, scary, quite frankly. Very scary. Very scary for Boomer Esiason. I would mention a few months ago during the summer, a caller called in to Gio and Boomer and Gio's show, and a caller was goofing on Gio due to the fact that he said that he had mental health issues and the guy was making fun of him. So instead of him hanging up and saying you're crazy and just moving on, he ranted, and he ranted so bad that Boomer got up and left. Norman got up and left. That poor guy, he's in such a bad relationship. But just think about Boomer. Look at where Boomer's come from. This is a guy that was in the Super Bowl. His whole life got destroyed by Joe Montana. Then he sort of was a sort of a barnacle underneath Imus's backside. And then when Imus got fired, he basically took over. And then they paired him. First they paired him with Craig Carton, who was a criminal. I'm not joking. A guy that went to federal prison for basically grifting people off of gambling debts that he was trying to pay off. And now he's dealing with a cuckoo bird. Poor guy. I mean, really. He's got like 40 jobs, Boomer, and he's got to deal with one of the jobs that he has. He had to deal with a criminal, a gambling degenerate, and now Greg Giannotti, who's a little woo in the head. So, let me know what you think about this video. Of course, please subscribe to the Football Head. If you like this stuff, hit that subscribe button before you go. Thank you, and I'll see you later.